Right. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Wednesday evening meditation session. So, this morning I read an op ed in the New York Times, and the writer was talking about how now, when we query a question in Google or in a search engine, the first thing that comes up is an AI response which answers the question. And what the writer talked about, which I thought was really kind of interesting, is that in the past, when we would search for something, so I went all the way back to when I was in college, and we searched via card catalogs, actual physical card catalogs, which don't really exist anymore that I know of. Um, you would go through the card catalogs, you'd start to look for stuff, and it would lead you in all of these places that were kind of outside of the initial sort of question that you had. And that even in originally searching Google or whatever search engine you were using, you would put something in there and you would have to search through sites to try to find something. And oftentimes it would take you places that were unexpected, that you weren't getting necessarily the exact answer to the question you got, but you were sort of moving through things and sort of answering questions or opening up things that you were not necessarily looking for. So you were finding things, in essence, that were new to you, that intrigued you, but that you got there through some sort of unanticipated path. But what's happening now, it appears, is that people see the answer, the question they've asked from Google in AI, and they're done. They close their computer and they move on. And what this writer was saying, which I thought related to sort of our work in meditation, is that it's kind of a closing of the mind. And I think what she was trying to say by this, or what she did say by this, was the idea that a lot of times we don't actually know what we're looking for. We don't know what questions to ask. So we start somewhere, but it's not necessarily the end place that we should be. And so we are creating systems that in some ways give us more access to quick information, but less access to sort of exploring what information exists that's related to it as we move through things. And so as I thought about this, because I read that and I'm thinking, that makes sense to me. And what this kind of says to me about our meditation practice is, in meditation, we talk all the time, or I do anyway, and I think is sort of part of meditation, but that we speak a lot about opening ourselves up, finding the things inside of us that we didn't really know were there, or that we had an inkling of, or that we were rationalizing away, or hiding away, or didn't really want to deal with, or felt uncomfortable with, or whatever those things are. But through the process of opening ourselves up, we allow them to rise up, to experience them, to see them, to investigate them, to see them without judgment, to try to wipe away the contextual framework we sometimes toss on top of them. And so it sort of relates to this question of having the answer to the question, that what we're really looking for is some sense of what those answers are, but we don't really always know what it is the question is that we are asking. And so we have to, in a sense, open ourselves up to look for it rather than sort of close ourselves up and have some blinders on. And not that I am sort of saying AI is always bad and the old way was better and it's better to have to go look through a card catalog, because I don't necessarily believe that's the case, but that anytime we gain something, there is something lost. And so perhaps what we want to try to do is gain things without losing things in the process that replace them, but expand and build on top of those. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting perspective in the article. And so that's been on my mind today. So I thought I would share that with everybody. All right, so with that, I'm going to set my watch. And thank you, Kayla. And we will get into our meditation. So I've got my watch set for 20 minutes. So we'll go for 20 minutes or so. And here we go. All right, so as we begin today, we close our eyes. We get ourselves settled in our places. We get ourselves focused on our environment, focused on the place that we're at. We slow our minds down, slow our thought process down, slow our thinking down, and we settle in. We note our breath as we breathe in slowly through our nose, around and out through our mouths. And in order to focus ourselves, we think actively of the notion that as I breathe in, I am aware of this breath. And as I breathe out, I have awareness of my breathing. So I take a few breaths in, around, and out. And in, and around, and out. And I settle myself. I feel the chair that I'm sitting on. I feel the roughness of the fabric, how the chair leans back slightly as I lean back in it. The feeling of the chair and the pressure on my bottom and my upper legs, and the way my legs just sort of fall over the end. So wherever you are sitting, to key into our tactile sensations, to feel the environment around us, to explore that environment in any way that we can. We can explore the fabric of the chair or the bed that you're sitting on, or if you're sitting on the floor, the mat, the cushion, the hardness. I can feel my hands laying in my lap. I can feel the silkiness of the polyester fabric of my shorts that I'm wearing. I can feel the tightness around my legs of the shorts. I can feel my feet touching the floor, the bottom of my slippers that I'm wearing, the feeling of the rug beneath my feet through the slippers. And so I ground myself in this physical environment, being completely and totally aware of the environment that I'm in. And I come back to my breath slowly. And I come back to my mind. And I take pictures as things float through them. The awareness of my breath, the awareness of my tactile sensations, the awareness of the temperature in the room, the sound of the silence that engulfs me, the slight low light that I sit in as I sit here, that I can sense even through my closed eyes. And just the quietness in the environment that I sit in at the moment. And I just allow all of that to rise, as if those sensations can lift off of me, float in the air above me, as if I can not only feel their experience, but I could see them. I can envision them, almost like I can project an image of myself out to myself in front of me and observe myself sitting in my meditation position here and observe the movement of my hands as I speak, And watch the movement of my lips as I talk. Feel my tongue in my mouth as it moves to create the sounds that are created for the words that I create. And I stay there for a moment. I stay in that present place. And I slow everything down. And I key into how my body feels. I search my body from top of my head, down through all of my muscles, as if I have a scan scanning my body and feeling the muscles, the squint of my eye as they close, the movement of my jaw as I speak, the feeling of my neck as it holds up my head, my shoulders, any tightness in my upper back which I feel. And I work to loosen that out and let that just drop, as if I'm just scanning my body slowly. My lower back, I feel it leaning against the back of my chair. I even hear my chair squeak as I fidget just slightly. I feel my belly just drop and lay there, and I can feel it lifting and dropping and lifting and dropping with each breath. Not modulating my breath, but knowing that I am moving slowly, both physically and cognitively. Everything just slowing down. I can sense my heart beating slowly, 50 beats a minute, 55 beats a minute, just pumping that blood throughout my body and sensing the blood moving through the veins and the arteries, being filtered through the heart, delivering oxygen and nutrients to my muscles, feeling my muscles absorbing those things as if they are hungry little children in my body waiting for dinner. Not starving for the oxygen, but anticipating its arrival, and then giving back whatever it doesn't need to be sent out back through my body and out back through my breath. And I sit and recognize the miracle of how this finely tuned machine works with apparently no effort. I sit, and in some ways I engage in no conscious activity, yet my body is consistently moving, time consistently passing, blood consistently flowing, oxygen consistently throughout my body, my breath constantly in and out. I can be aware of my breath, but most of the time I am unaware of it. But yet I breathe evenly, consistently, with a sense of complete calm and comfort. I sit in the absence of any discomfort or pain. And I don't think about how fortunate I am to feel that sense of comfort. But I recall just recently having had my tooth extracted and the recovery process, which caused me discomfort and soreness for 7, 8, 9 days. And as it dissipated and disappeared, I think about the relief that overcame me when I no longer had that soreness, when I could open my mouth without feeling it. And so I'm reminded of that, this place of comfort, this place of softness, this place of no discomfort, the lack of feeling of it, is in some ways a gift and a blessing that I raise to awareness and feel joyful for, and allow that joy and comfort to rise up in me. And so I balance that against all the small indignities and pains and discomforts and annoyances that roll throughout a day, throughout an hour, a day, a month, a year. And for each moment, there's an absence of those. I feel joy. I feel fortunate. I feel awareness. And as I recognize the awareness of that emptiness, that feeling of nothing being out of place, that feeling of some sense of void that feels like nothing is there, as if I'm living inside a vacuum-sealed bubble, as really not empty, but filled in a sense with comfort, with being calm and relaxed and sedate, so much so that it frees my mind up to allow things to rise up. And so I allow those things to rise up because of the absence of a preoccupation with something that is gnawing at me, whether it be physical, like the pain from the recovery from the tooth, the soreness that is there while it heals, or any mental pain that may arise, anxiety, stress, worry, concern, fear, anger, and recognize that those feelings and those emotions, those physical sensations, block and prevent me from feeling a sense of openness. It's if they build a gate around my heart and tell my heart, you have to focus on the pain. You have to focus on the anger. You have to focus on the stress. But as I learned again from my tooth, that as I focused on it, that as I allowed it at moments to consume me, I closed myself up. And the openness that I strive to feel, the freedom of that openness, the liberating sense of it, was blocked. Almost like barriers, sandbags, in an attempt to try to protect me. But in their protection, they hindered me. And I often remember that in trying to help myself, sometimes I actually am hindering myself by closing. And closing limits us. It limits our perspective. It limits our ability to engage with the things that we are inevitably connected to. The ability to see what our world really is. The ability to experience the beauty and the joy that exists out there. The ability to feel open and compassionate towards others. And so, as the physical pain was lifted, my muscles loosened, my arms felt softer, my breathing was more natural, and my openness and my thoughts increased, and my connection with others and other things was enhanced again. And so again, I could see the beauty of the lake and the water as it floated across it. And I could take joy in walking the dog in the morning and watching the sun rise above the eastern horizon and feeling the cool breeze of the morning and watching the dew as it laid on top of the grass and the mist that arises on a humid morning and feeling the heat of the sun on my body in midday. And so I bring myself outside and I sit next to the garden on the ground on a blanket so as not to absorb too much moisture. And I look at the plants and I almost can see them growing, knowing that yesterday they were smaller. And the tomatoes and the cucumbers and the peppers were smaller and still moving and growing. And I connect to the vision of that life. And I even see the weeds in between the plants being pulled and regenerating, being pulled and regenerating. A circle consistently going around and around and around. And I think about the movement of the planet that I can't feel, but I know is moving. And I think about the growth of the plants that I can't see moment to moment, but that each day I can see their growth and their development, waiting for their peak, for the tomatoes to start to turn red, for the cucumbers to get large enough to pick, for the peppers to green and turn full. And then I picked a cucumber and I held it in my hand and I can feel its rough skin on the outside. And I can feel its weight and its texture. And I can anticipate the moisture and the flavor of the vegetable. So I take it inside and bring it in the house. And I pull out the cutting board, lay it on the counter. And I cut the cucumber into small slices, leaving the skin on. And I see the dripping of the moisture, and I can feel the firmness of the cucumber and the little seeds that are embedded in it. And I think about the fact that I remember when those cucumbers were just tiny little plants, just a bit of green sitting in a garden. And the weather was still a little chilly, thinking, I hope it's not too soon. But the beauty of impermanence and the constant motion of the earth and time and the transformative qualities of our experience have grown it into this cucumber, this food, this nutrition, a gift from somewhere, from life, that I am connected to by the fact that I helped plant it, I helped water it, I even helped weed it, and I pulled the cucumber, and I sliced it, and I held a slice in my hand, and I looked at it, And I took a bite out of it, and I could feel the moisture and the crunchiness and the freshness. And I could feel my mouth chewing it, grinding it up, and swallowing it, and letting it just fall and enter my digestive system to become a physical part of me. And so I'm reminded of the cycle and our connection to the earth and to the environment. I'm reminded how everything transforms itself. So the cucumber, with its life, is a living thing that grows and lives and produces fruit and vegetable, that offered itself, in a sense, to me to be connected, to help sustain my existence. And I finish a few slices of cucumber, pick the rest up, wrap it in a plastic bag, seal the bag, open the refrigerator and drop it into the vegetable drawer. Close the refrigerator to sustain it until I want to eat it again. And we come back, and I bring myself back to my room, to where I am, to where we sit. And I take a deep breath, and I follow my breath in, breathing in and breathing out. And feeling that sense of comfort and being surrounded by the sound and the feel and the smell of silence. And I take a breath in and out, and in and out. And namaste. May the light in me shine in you.